Okay, let's look at the questions on this sheet. I know that I did one in class today, but some people came back to see me to say they needed to see it again and asked if I would do it on video. So I'm doing it on video. If you already got it, you can fast forward to number 1. But then I'll also do number 2 and the others. Okay, so number 1. A picture is hanging on the wall as shown. What must be the weight of the picture? What is the picture's mass? Okay, so if you look at the picture itself, we could look at the forces acting on it. So there's an Fg going down, the weight of the picture, and then going up, there are 2 forces, and they're going out at angles, like this. Each force, according to the picture, is 30 newtons. Also, according to the picture, the angle here is 45 degrees, which means if I were to break each of these forces up into their y and their x components, so this would be F2y, and this would be F2x, and this one would also be y, F1y, and F1x, x, y. And this angle here would be 45 degrees, and this angle here would be 45 degrees. Hopefully it's clear to you that F1x and F2x are going to be equal and opposite, because the hypotenuses are the same, the angles are the same, so the opposite sides should be the same, but they're in opposite directions, so they're going to cancel each other out. We're looking for the weight and the mass of the picture, which is Fg. Well, this picture isn't moving, which means the net force must be 0. If the net force is 0, then the 2 y forces, F1y and F2y, must be equal and opposite to Fg. In other words, F1y plus F2y minus Fg must equal 0, because the picture isn't moving, which means the F net must be 0. So if F1y plus F2y minus Fg equals 0 newtons, then F1y plus F2y must be equal to Fg. So what is F1y? Well, if we look at the right angle triangle, we see that it's the adjacent side. We have the hypotenuse, we have the angle, so we could use cosine to find it. So cos of 45 would be equal to F1y over 30 newtons. So F1y would be equal to 30 newtons times the cos of 45. When you do this in your calculator, you should get 21.21 newtons. Okay? If we did the same thing for F2y, it would also be cos. So it would be the cos of 45 is equal to F2y over 30 newtons. Hopefully you see that they're exactly the same. So F2y will equal 30 newtons times the cos of 45. So F2y should also be equal to 21.21 newtons. So now we go back here where we're looking for Fg, and we have Fg is equal to F1y plus F2y. So Fg then is equal to 21.21 newtons plus 21.21 newtons. So Fg is just going to be equal to 42.42 newtons. So that's the first part of the question. Okay, I was doing it in my head, so I didn't keep the next decimal, but apparently it's 42.426. So this last part of the question says, what's the mass? Well, we know Fg is equal to mg. So we can solve for m by dividing both sides by g. So m is equal to Fg over g. So it'll be 42.426, if I believe my answers on the sheet, divided by 9.81 meters per second squared. And when you do this, you should get a mass of 4.3248 kilograms. Number 1 is now complete. Number 2. Number 2 is kind of identical. Okay, so it's another box that the stork is delivering. So acting down on this box is Fg. Acting up are 2 forces. There's a tension in this rope. They're not quite symmetrical, and a tension in this rope. And they are supposed to be symmetrical. Both of these angles are 60 degrees. Okay, and so both of these forces have a y component going up and an x component going over. So this will be f1y, this will be f1x. This guy also has a y component going up, f2y and f2x. And if I had made them symmetrical, they would look a little better. Both of these angles, this one 30 degrees and this one 30 degrees. Okay, it should be clear, if they were symmetrical like they are in the original diagram, that f1x will equal f2x. Okay, so they're just going to cancel out. And so again, this stork isn't dropping this package. Okay, so f net must be equal to 0, which means f1y plus f2y minus fg must equal 0, which means f1y plus f2y must equal fg. f1y and f2y, this time we don't know them, but we know fg. We know fg is mg. And we can find it. They told us the mass was 15 kilograms. So if you want it over here on the side, you could do 15 kilograms times 9.81 meters per second squared. And you will get an FG of, what is that, 147.15 maybe? Yeah, 147.15 newtons. Okay, the other thing we know is that F1y and F2y are going to be the same. So if we add them together, it's like having two Fy's. That's equal to 147.15 newtons. So one Fy would be equal to 73.65, sorry, I'm trying to do it in my head, 575. I don't know if I just did that right. Yeah, 575 newtons. So that's Fy. So now we can find our F's. Because we have the adjacent side and we have the angle and we want the hypotenuse. So it's going to be cos of 30 is equal to the adjacent side, Fy, whether it's 1 or 2, over the hypotenuse F. So rearranging, F is going to equal Fy over the cos of 30. Fy is the 73.575 newtons divided by the cos of 30. Fy is equal to 84.957 newtons. Okay, so that's both of the forces. They're the same because the angles are the same. I'm going to skip down to number 5 only because we don't have a lot of time left in this video and it's shorter. So it says, I'm confused, entered his physics class and quickly became amazed by the remains of a lesson on the whiteboard. Evidently the teacher had taught the class the following on that day. Explain why or how each of the first 60 qualities could be true and the last inequality must be untrue. So if we look at these, 5 plus 12 is going to equal 17 newtons to the right. The only way that could be true is if both 5 and 12 are going to the right, and so you would add them up. 5 plus 12 is equal to 7 newtons to the right. The only way this would be true is if this is a vector go 5 newtons to the left and 12 newtons to the right, you would then subtract them and keep the direction of the larger one, 7 to the right. 5 plus 12 is equal 17 to the left. They both must be going to the left. Add them together and keep the direction. 5 plus 12 is equal to 13 going up. This is a right angle triangle. 5 squared plus 12 squared. 25 plus 144 is 169. Take the square root, it's 13. So they're at right angles to each other. 5 plus 12 is equal to 7 left. So 12 must be to the left this time. 5 must be to the right. The net will be 7 to the left. This one gives you 5 plus 12 equals 10 newtons up and to the right. So it's another, they're at angles to each other. The last one's an inequality. 5 plus 12 is not equal to 18, and there's no way it can be because your biggest force is 17, your smallest is 7.